We are recording. We are back with another episode of A Fighting Chance. I'm going to just call it episode 50, round up. It might even be 51.
Figure it out. I can use AI to fix it if anything.
It has been a few weeks. I'm a father now, which, you got to take a few weeks off as taking care of situation at home front. But things have been great. We have a special guest on this episode, which Rob, our good friend, who is also a brand new father too. So I just want to say congratulations right off the bat, because fatherhood is a fight in itself. That's for sure. And, oh, thank you, Sal. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little delayed.
Sal, are you a father yet while we're going around the circle?
Not that I know of, but yeah.
Well, you know what? You got time.
Yeah,
but dude, Sal, you were just telling me, which I think is important to announce, that you were just telling me right before we went live that you're back training some Muay Thai.
Yeah, some Muay Thai.
Dude,
kicking people. So it's great.
Do you want to catch people up on that? Have you really have you taken a beating in the past few weeks?
I've only trained 2 or 3 times since I went back, so I haven't gotten that nasty beating yet, but I have taken a couple punches upside the head.
Have you given any punches?
Yes, I have given out more. So that's
really
good. Yes.
Are you fighting people pretty much the same size as you? What's the deal? Are they same age? Are you fighting older guys?
They're all around the same age, but
any women? Are you fighting any women?
No. Okay, I'm not fighting any women. Again, not knowingly. Who knows these days?
Well, good. That's fair,
yeah.
and we're okay with that.
Yeah.
But dude, that's awesome. Very, very proud of you for that. I guess you had to fill some time while I took a little hiatus from you.
Yeah, you became a dad, and I started punching people.
It's crazy how it happened. And my realization that I've had for the past 2 weeks is, first of all, it's crazy that humans make little humans.
Yeah.
And it's also insane that they send you home from the hospital and just be like, all right, good luck.
Figure it out.
Like, both those things are fucking nuts. But yeah, we're gonna get through it. That's for sure. Rob, would you say you've had a similar situation of being a dad for the last few months?
Yeah, man, there's no way to prepare for it. Kind of like boxing, you plan, you train, you do what you can, but you get in there, you get punched in the face, and then you just have to figure it out. So yeah, there's definitely some instinct that kicks in, but nothing can prepare you, man. So you just got to take each day as it comes.
Have you taken any punches or given punches lately in a ring sparring session, or is this just a metaphor for something?
Yeah, thankfully it's a metaphor. Yeah. I'm on too little sleep to take any punches. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a CT in itself for sure. Rob was actually just telling us before we went. I was giving Sal a little background on Rob's done a lot of boxing. He said he's pretty much obsessed with boxing, and his brother Phil is. As he said, he used to spar him a lot, but then just became the coach because he said Phil was a monster and a nightmare of a problem because Phil was about 6'6". I have no idea what his reach is, but I just you said he was a lefty and just wouldn't want to take some punches from your brother. That's for sure, because I've also known him for many years, and he's a very, very large human.
He is, yeah. I don't know how that skipped me, but yeah.
What did you guys feed Phil?
Way too much. Yeah, way too much. We definitely didn't get enough. But yeah, man, I wish he had, if he had taken it a little more seriously, I think he could have made some noise in like the national Golden Gloves. But, his first fight ever was Chicago Golden Gloves. It's pretty rare. Usually you do some Park District matches or some other amateur matches. They just threw him right in there and won his first 2 fights in the gloves by knockout, which in amateur boxing with the headgear and the big gloves, you don't see that too often. So
what's wrong with these guys he knocked out?
Yeah. Well, what's funny is he trained the way I trained. Amateur boxing and pro boxing are 2 very different sports, right? It's not just the headgear and the timing. It's, in amateur boxing, you're trying to just land as many punches as quickly as you can in like a points system. and
Right.
you're not really encouraged to throw body punches. Whereas pro boxing, you're fighting 10, 12 rounds. It's a longer game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And you're fighting 3-minute rounds instead of 2-minute rounds. So for amateur, I was like, you know what, Phil, you have all this damn power. No one can see where your punches are coming from because you're so tall and you're lefty. Your hooks are like from out of nowhere. Why don't you just start throwing body punches? Focus on body punches because these kids are not going to expect it. And his first 2 fights, he was just launching body shots, and he stopped these kids who were like, "Where are these punches coming from? And why have I never taken a body shot before?" So
It's so crazy because it seems so fundamental.
It does. In pro boxing, it's super fundamental. But if you watch the way like these Eastern European the style of fighting, like a very high guard and a lot of punches and bunches and keeping your hands up super high, they neglect a lot of the body punches. Kind of like the Klitschko's or the light heavyweight champ right now, Bivol. They have that classic Eastern European guard. It's just not as big, and it comes from the amateur system, which is ubiquitous. I mean, the Cubans, the amateur style is pretty much consistent, like high guard, and you just throw a ton of straight punches, not as many hooks, not as many body shots, but because you don't have time, when you're fighting three rounds, 2-minute rounds, it goes by quick. Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, and what you're describing to me sounds so obvious and so easy to figure out if you know. Why would you say that? I don't know. Why would you say that this is something that didn't catch on for amateurs, or something that like your brother could just take advantage of? And at the same time, like, how come? I don't know, because it almost seems like there's such a talent gap in boxing, because it's like there's like the people who are hyped up, and then there might be like even a lot of people who know like what you know and what your brother has or was doing and could have taken it farther. Like, is there such a talent gap from the people the boxers that somebody would talk about today, and like the guys who are just like, you know what, I'm just not even doing it anymore. Like, I mean, what we just witnessed this past weekend with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. I mean, the fact that Devin Haney is the belt holder, and he's just like basically hugging somebody for 10 rounds. It's just, to me, like, I'm sure I'm also probably not seeing what you're seeing in this fight.
So the thing that I look for you never know who's going to be a great pro fighter, right? But things you look for, Emmanuel Stewart, the great boxing trainer, used to always talk about is a deep amateur background. And I looked up Devin Haney's amateur background today. He was about 138 wins, 8 losses. I mean, that's a pretty good record. He didn't go to the Olympics, but he was, a national Golden Gloves champion. So he had a lot of experience. I mean, there's very few guys that make it to the top level in the pro game that don't have some amateur boxing background. Not all of them are going to be an Olympic gold medalist like a Oscar De La Hoya or even like a Muhammad Ali or Andre Ward. But a lot of guys at least have some amateur pedigree. There's some guys like Deontay Wilder who just have insane power and just kind of learned on the job. He turned pro at, I think it was his early 20s, but he just started boxing in his early 20s. He didn't really have an amateur background. And within 2-3 years, I think he got an Olympic bronze medal, and they call him the Bronze Bomber because of that.
Yeah.
But that's very rare. I mean, most guys, like a Devin Haney, he's got a hell of a amateur record. And
Lomachenko.
Yeah, Lomachenko is probably the best, amateur boxer of all time, arguably, and he's translated well to the pros. But he started late. I mean, his first fight as a pro was against a former world champion. That is unheard of.
Yeah,
no one would ever do that. So, but I was shocked by this past week, and I'm curious what you guys did. You see the fight? Did you get a chance to watch the highlights?
Yeah. So. Well, you take it over. You talk first, Sal, on that, and then I'll chime in with the nonsense.
Yeah, I watched the fight. I didn't know what to think about it leading into it, just because of all the antics. Like it's hard to tell what's real or not. I knew that he was skilled. I knew that no one really stood out in their Ryan kind of stood out in their amateur fights. I think he was the only one out of the two to get a finish in any of them, or knockdown. But I don't know. It was hard to tell going into it, but you could tell as soon as the fight started, he was definitely, he was locked in. They were making good adjustments and everything. I didn't like that shelling up thing he kept doing. That was, I don't know what that was, but
shooting for double legs.
But I thought it was, I thought it was a pretty good performance. I didn't think he looked too much different from the Tank fight. I think just Haney didn't, for whatever reason, wasn't making those reads on the hook and just kept eating.
Yeah, man, I was shocked by this result, and I mean the odds. I mean, Garcia was a very heavy underdog, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. He bet $2 million on himself.
Yeah,
for real?
I saw that.
Yeah, dude, he made $12 million.
Dang.
Dude,
So,
it is crazy what Vegas did to Ryan Garcia, and it's like, okay, cool. Is it because he talked some nonsense about the elites in Bohemian Grove and whatnot? Because it's like if that's going to convince somebody that in Vegas, I mean, sure, the media can make him out to be insane and do what they would do, but I just don't know how that made. I mean, the fact that he's beaten him in amateur, I don't know how somebody becomes a plus 600 to a plus 800 underdog after that.
I think he just, he talked down his own odds with all of his crazy antics, and he was smart enough to bet on himself. And hey, man, he made everybody look foolish. I mean,
but this is the fight game. This is literally the fight game. Like, if we don't think that Crazy can win, I mean, John Jones is a direct example of how Crazy can completely not just win, but be a destruction in there.
No, it was definitely shocking. And yeah, man, I thought this was a no hope fight. I haven't gotten a fight so wrong in a long time, because if you look at Haney at 135 pounds, he beat George Kambosos twice in Australia, who had beaten Teofimo Lopez. He was the real champion in the weight class. So he beats him twice. Okay. Then he steps up, he beats Lomachenko, controversial decision.
Yeah.
You could score it either way, but either way, he won that. And then in his most recent fight, he moved up in weight and he fought this guy, Regis Prograis, who is a very solid 140-pound fighter. So, I mean, he's coming off 4 elite fighters where he looked good, especially in his last fight. He looked better than ever. And then coming into this fight, the other thing is you could see Haney's game progressing. Each fight, he was adding something new, not just a jab and combinations, but his movement. Everything was getting better as a pro. And even though him and Ryan, they were 3-3 when they fought in the amateurs, right? So they were familiar with each other. But Haney seemed like the guy on the up and up. Now, Ryan, on the other hand, his criticism, man, I still think it's valid after this fight. He doesn't move his feet.
Yeah.
He doesn't throw a lot of combinations. He never uses his jab. Okay. He's got this, the things that make him good now are the same things that made him good 5 years ago. He's just got a quick left hook.
Yeah.
He's got quick hands, and he
does hit very hard too. Like
he's got a lot of power.
Yeah.
And everyone says he's got a puncher's chance, but the puncher.
But it was more than
landed.
that though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely more than that, because he was also like making adjustments of, when Haney was starting to go under the hook, he was starting to time it differently.
Yeah.
That's what's frustrating to me about Ryan right now is he's like the Happy Gilmore of boxing, because he's got this crazy left hook, crazy hand speed, these natural gifts, but he's got
live all day long, just drinking, partying, doing whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're shocked. And the other thing is, I'm a massive UFC fan. Like, I'm very invested into the personalities of the fighters. And you just named 5 or 6 fighters that Devin Haney has fought, and I really couldn't tell you anything about them. Like, I know the guy from Australia, and like I've listened to like a little bit of him, but none of these guys do a good job other than their sport, other than boxing. And Ryan Garcia comes around, and a few months back, it starts popping up on my YouTube feed, little crazy stuff that Ryan is doing. And I'm like, oh, click. Let's check this out, what he's doing with Aiden Ross. Oh, let's check this out, what he's doing with Jake Paul. Like, let's just see what's going on. And then I'm like, I didn't know. He's talking to, Elon Musk or Alex, like all these people. And I'm just like, I'm invested. I'm invested at this point. And it was like one of the first things in boxing in a long time where I was I was invested to the car accident, like the car wreck of it, the whole
Yeah.
thing. And honestly, I thought the entire time, not that like I'm saying that there isn't some nuttiness going on, but the entire time I really was like, this is a person on camera and there's a smoke and mirror show going on right now in front of everybody's eyes. And this is pure acting gold. Not saying it's like an all out act, but I really do believe that anybody who's on camera, besides the three of us right now, is putting on a little bit of like a character routine and for a marketing plan, for a something, for, and like, look at him now. Like what is
still
if
is
he
weird.
Nobody's saying it's not weird, but like,
No, I'm saying he's still as weird now.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, right.
I don't think
Dude, but
changed.
if he made $12 million off of betting 2 on himself and then also walked away with $30 million from the fight, like,
Yeah.
it's
not forget,
absolutely, yeah.
UFC 300, Dana White's there bragging about 300K bonuses for fight of the night, right?
Dude, it's insane.
If you're a UFC fighter, you see Ryan is paying 1.5 mil just for missing 3 pounds of weight to your opponent. How does that make you feel, right? So I agree. Boxing has to do a better job of promoting itself, but the paycheck's much bigger, man, for these top guys. And
yeah, but it's so few and far between who's making that.
That's true.
And they never,
and also then what's that?
I was just gonna say, like, it's rare that you get this kind of fight, like these two,
right.
Rarely would they put them together at the time that they're fighting now. Maybe it would have happened 10 years from now and they're past their prime or whatever, but they need to make these big fights or they're going to lose interest yeah.
Rob, where's this money coming from also?
Yeah, man. I mean, when you have, again, Dana White is running an organization and he's paying for all of the promotion, obviously, the same as the boxing promoters are, but the whole gamut of running a business and all the employees. Whereas he says, every boxing pay-per-view is like a fire sale. It's like a going out of business sale. There's not as much sustainability. There's 5 or 6 high-level promoters in boxing that are trying to poach all of these fighters from one another and then make them fight in-house so they keep all the money. The promoters, they hate to do a 50-50 promotion and split the pot. But between pay-per-view, the other thing too is, they notoriously, like this card at the Barclays Center for Garcia and Haney, the undercard fighters didn't make a dime. They're paying them pennies, right? And all of the money goes to the top. Now, maybe UFC is more evenly distributed along the card, and maybe that's why you get better quality fights from top to bottom. I think you're much more likely to get value from buying a UFC pay-per-view than a boxing pay-per-view, frankly, and it's unfortunate, Well,
for so many reasons, though, not just the fights, like the actual commentators, the what's going on. Like, I don't know. It's definitely a different thing. Like, I get excited. Okay, they had the PFL on Friday night, which is another MMA organization, and when that was going on, because I had it on for a little bit, there's things about it that it's like, all right, they're not that they're trying to steal from the UFC, but they're trying to do what they need, what they
it's the
can
standard.
do. I know, dude, but it comes off laughable at times, and it sucks because the UFC really is what you're like basing everything off of and comparing it to.
And you can't build it overnight, right? Because what they're doing in Saudi Arabia right now is, yes, they're actually starting to put these cards. There was a card a few months ago in Saudi Arabia where you had Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. You had Anthony Joshua was fighting. You had like 5 or 6 star fighters on one card because these guys can pony up the money. But the audience, the arena, it's dead over there. It's like it's just
completely.
not.
It sounded like an Apex card.
It's not the same as Vegas. I mean, what Dana White has created in UFC, you can't just replicate that overnight. They've really figured out how to make an entertaining atmosphere and card from top to bottom without having to pay astronomical numbers, except for maybe the top guys, so good for them.
So what could potentially do that, do you think, for boxing? What could bring in, like, what could really pep up the personalities, pep up the, the back and forth talking between fighters, like the sale of a fight? What do you think it's missing?
Well, the biggest drop off for me has been I grew up watching boxing on HBO and Showtime, and you had Jim Lampley, Max Kellerman, Larry Merchant, and Roy Jones commentating. You had really, really high quality production value and the storytelling, because fighting ultimately at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's about the storytelling, right? Who is Max
100%.
Holloway? What's Max Holloway's background? What's he fighting for? What are his shortcomings? Who is he training with? When you get to know the fighters, it's inherently exponentially more interesting, right? And if you can't educate your audience and get them to care about these fighters, you're at a disadvantage every single time. And that is the challenge that, whether it's DAZN or, these fly-by-night operations that are in boxing now, that the production value is just not what it was with HBO or Showtime. That is a big uphill challenge to climb. And that is the biggest part of marketing is storytelling. It's storytelling.
Sal, how much of your investment into like a personality of a fighter do you rely, or like do you get excited like when John Anik and Joe Rogan and DC break down, like get you hyped on the story, or is it more the fighter giving you a little inside of their life before they're up in the octagon?
I think for me, I'm maybe the wrong person to ask, because like as much as I am invested in the story, I do really enjoy like just the technical shit of the fight. Being able to, I know this guy's gonna come in and he's gonna play this kind of game.
Wrestle him, and this guy's gonna try to knock him out.
Like I know his clinch game is on point, and I'm excited to see that. And so for that for me sells it a lot more than, these guys posting reels on Instagram or something. Like it's just I guess it depends.
You can have both though. That's the beauty of it.
Exactly. Man. And they've mastered that. You really enjoy the fighting, and then they, by default, you know them.
And I'm the same way. And I really think that that's what does it for me is, what somebody's goal is in a fight, because they, everybody, even if they're well-rounded fighters, they all have like, they're, technically they're a kickboxer, or technically they have a jiu-jitsu background or wrestling. And I really do think it's like that, trying to cancel each other out aspect that really gets me mostly into it. And with boxing, it's like, you just have your hands, and like, you don't even have, and it's like, but for me, I know for Rob, it's so different than you just have a jab and a cross. Sal, is it like that for you? Or are you, I feel like Rob must be watching, because of his obsessiveness for boxing, something that you and I, like having like a palate for food as a chef versus like somebody who just goes to a restaurant.
Yeah. That describes it pretty well. Like I get excited when I see guys using techniques and doing things that personally I enjoy over other fight styles or whatever. So that will sell me on that. Guys, like that's why I love the Contender series so much, because you see these guys come in with all these different styles, and they're young, and you get to watch them grow. Whereas boxing, when they're that young fighting, they're fighting cans, and it's just it's the sport was built they're built very differently, and it's hard to like at this point completely change it to some whole other thing.
Yeah, I always compare it to like watching chess. Like if you don't really know chess, watching chess is about the most boring fucking thing you can possibly do, right? But if you're a grandmaster and you're watching two other grandmasters play, you can see how they're thinking. That's interesting to me, right? Yeah. So.
And I love listening to chess, like grandmasters talk about chess. I don't play chess, but listening to them talk about it, like on Lex Friedman podcast, I'm very, very engaged to them talking about it.
Because it's warfare, man. It's warfare at the highest level, For sure.
Exactly. Damn, what was I going to say? Did you watch UFC 300?
I caught the highlights.
Nice.
Yeah, man. I just, watching. I've seen Gagey fight many times. I've seen Holloway fight many times. I love a good upset.
Yeah,
that
sure.
ending,
nuts.
It was unreal. It reminded me of, again, not to dive back into boxing here, but my favorite boxing match when maybe, gosh, this is back, like, I'm dating myself, '06, '07, when Pacquiao was coming up. Pacquiao was tearing through everybody. Nobody could stop him. And everybody was afraid of him. And like the stories that were coming out of the gym, like sparring partners would go home after like one day. Like, hey, dude, we can't mess with this guy. Like, I haven't, people are saying like since early Mike Tyson, there just wasn't somebody as scary as this dude. And he fought this guy as he was stepping up named Eric Morales, who was already going to be in the Hall of Fame, like one of the greatest fighters in the history of Mexico. But he was, 33, 34. At that time, that was pretty damn old to be a fighter. So people thought he was on the downslide. And they get in there, and Morales, they just have a dogfight, but Morales fights an incredibly intelligent fight. They go into the 12th round, the last round, and Morales is clearly ahead by a few points.
Yeah.
And he decides, you know what? He turns left-handed, the same style as Pacquiao. He challenges him to the center of the ring. Come at me, knock me out if you can. And they just go at it, and the crowd went absolutely insane. And they just duked it out till the end, and Morales won a decision. This just reminded me, Holloway just pointing, come at me. That was just such an epic finish, and it was incredible, dude. Because Gagey is, let's face it, I know Max Holloway constantly is credited as the best boxer in UFC, and maybe he is, but Gagey's no slouch, man. I mean, we saw what he did to Tony Ferguson, just a brutal puncher, a brutal counter puncher. So,
even the Fiziev fight not that long ago, like to kickbox with a guy like that for 3 rounds.
Yeah, just a free swinging exchange like that. I mean, anybody could get caught. So that was just legendary from Max Holloway, and he'll always be remembered for that.
His coach Trevor Whitman he has a boxing background. Like, that's where he comes from. So that's where Gaethje developed that style.
Yeah, man, he's got the goods. So I'd be curious to see where he goes from here. What's next for Gaethje as well? Yeah, man, that was an incredible card. And now, they're saying Conor is going to come back. I was reading, so I'm sure you guys
stuff for sure.
That a few times.
No. All this has happened. Literally, they've announced the Islam Makhachev fight versus Dustin Poirier since the last time we talked, which is unbelievably exciting. They've announced Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor. They've announced
Costa Strickland.
Costa Strickland. I'm upset about that personally.
Why?
Strickland deserves that rematch, dude.
Oh yeah, but they won't give it to him.
Okay,
they'll never give it to
him. You asked me why I'm upset.
Why don't they like him, dude? I feel like he's a money machine, dude. He talks so much trash. He generates so much attention.
Do you know who he isn't a money machine for, though? Disney.
Sponsors.
And Disney owns ESPN. He's a money machine for every man in America. Like, literally, every man in America is like, Strickland! And when I say America, at this point, I truly mean around the world. I get hit up on Twitch when I'm streaming by like young dudes around in other countries. They're like, Sean Strickland is the most entertaining person in your country. I'm like, and they're not even fight fans.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that.
Yeah, no, but I totally agree. He is a money machine, and he deserves that rematch. Yeah. He kicked Izzy's ass and arguably beat Drigas.
Is he really any worse than Conor was, too? That's my question. If Conor was from Missouri, I don't think he would be getting as much shit, as Strickland is. But I guess, like you said, different ownership now, different time. So
yeah, well, it's definitely different times. It's different times in the world. Truly, it's like the things that you can and cannot say at this point, I think, are different than when Conor was around. And
Conor never went at the boss like how Sean does. Like, Conor, with all the craziness, for at least until recently, never said anything bad on Dana or the UFC, other than like I'll own the UFC one day or shit like that. But Sean is, he's very outspoken.
Yeah.
Conor also didn't break down crying on Theo Vaughn, so we got to give Sean some credit. Rob, how good is Jake Paul as a boxer?
No, you know what, man? If if him and Tyson, there hasn't been a lot of clarity. I've heard some people saying they're going to wear headgear and big gloves. I've heard other people say it's going to be like a legit fight. I think it's probably going to be pre-arranged where they have a draw or something like that, kind of like how the Roy Jones fight was, because Jake Paul and Mike Tyson have been buddies for probably almost a decade at this point. You know, they've been on each other's podcasts. So there's not real animosity there. In a straight up fight right now, I think Jake Paul would beat Mike Tyson. I really believe that. Dude, age. We saw it happen with Holyfield and was it Vitor Belfort, I think, a few years ago? Yeah. Brutal, dude. One round destruction. Now, and Vitor was 41, 42.
Yeah. Also juice to the gills.
Yeah.
Well, dude, but Jake Paul's doing some stuff too.
Oh yeah, everybody.
If Tyson was 40, I think he would beat Jake Paul's ass. But 50, he's gonna be 58 at the time of the fight. I mean, it's just and you know, Jake Paul's taller. I mean, he's obviously younger. At this age, he's probably stronger. And the thing is, dude, he's been training. I mean, he was training
really hard
up with. A few years ago, Shane Mosley was training him up in the mountains in Big Bear, California. Mm-hmm. He had Shannon Briggs as a trainer. He's a guy who's getting world-class training, world-class resources.
Yeah,
world-class. And he's just a good athlete, So, like if he was a pro, we saw he lost to Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury's probably a top 50 cruiserweight, maybe. But yeah, I mean, and against anybody real, like even like a Canelo, who's, 2 weight divisions lower, he would beat the shit out of Jake Paul.
Yeah.
But he's not a bad fighter. He's not a joke. And if him and Tyson, if this fight is for real, he could really hurt him.
It's interesting. You just said that Tommy Fury's top 50. I think for a lot of people who watch that fight who aren't on your level of understanding the sport, they'd be like, this is top 50.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's in his weight class. I'm not saying pound for pound.
No, I know. But
at 190 pounds, there's only X amount of guys in the world that are, at that level. And Fury was, a decent amateur fighter. He's got obviously the family background. He's been fighting since he was a kid. So no, he's got some ability. But again, I don't see Jake Paul as ever being like a world-class contender, but if he can keep making money fighting washed-up fighters, I mean, good for him.
I'm the biggest John Fury fan.
Yeah, he's the real deal, man. He was doing bare knuckle boxing back in the day, ripping eyes out, and yeah, he's the scariest fucking guy.
Oh my god, he's so entertaining. But when Jake got the sport going with young people, was this something that was exciting that there's more people talking about boxing for you, or is somebody were you just
no, dude, there's a lot of boxing fans and people in boxing that are bitter or jealous of his success. Yeah. I think it's curious because it gets people, young fans in tune to the sport. And even if he's fighting a washed up, he's supposed to be fighting washed up UFC guys, but if he was fighting washed up boxers, fans learn more about those fighters. They're going to go watch those fighters on YouTube, and that just starts the chain of it brings in a whole new generation of fans. So it doesn't bother me at all. And that's why, I mean, dude, this Anthony Joshua, Francis Ngannou fight, I mean, how many eyeballs were on that? Everybody wanted to watch that fight after, he had a good performance against Fury. And
what do you make of that, though? I mean, that was a really good performance against Fury. And I think people were actually thinking he could take out Joshua. But I think Joshua's a different kind of animal with the power.
Yeah, just different styles. I think if Fury trained properly for that fight, he clearly came in a little deflated. But I don't think he was going to knock out Ngannou. Fury's not a huge puncher. He's a fantastic mover and boxer for his size. And Ngannou just, hung in there. He's got enough power to take out any human being on the planet. It doesn't care, no matter what sport you're in. But
how did you score that fight, Rob?
I thought Fury won the fight. It was close, but a lot of the thing about boxing is sometimes there's these really lull rounds where not much happens, but a few more jabs, a few more points scored here. that edges the round. Whereas the next round, Ngannou might land 5 or 6 big, like eye-catching punches, but it's still 1-1, you know? So when you tally up these kind of lull rounds where not much happened, I think I had Fury by 2 or 3 points, which is still unbelievable considering that was Ngannou's first fight. And Conor had a great, fight, first fight stepping in with Mayweather. I mean, that was impressive, but a dude, styles make fights, and a guy like Ngannou going up against Joshua, you can punch naturally, but to defend, to have defense at a world-class level, that takes decades to learn how to do that. And he wasn't going to just come in and be able to defend himself at that kind of level. And that's just, you saw Ngannou was reacting because Joshua was doing these feints where he'd come forward, fake with his foot, do a feint. Ngannou would take the bait, and then Joshua would just wait, do that again, and then finally he would strike with it. He was falling into traps, and he didn't know how to handle it, and he was going to get knocked out sooner or later. I was sad, honestly, to see such a brutal knockout, but I'm glad he got paid, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, honestly, to your point earlier about the high guard with the Europeans and all that, I think that was just always going to be a better matchup for Francis. Just, Tyson angles out a lot and throws like little hooks and just kind of like feeler punches. And that's most of how he'll fight all 12 rounds. And then Anthony's just straight down the pipe, those little feints, and it's just kind of tailor-made.
And a ton of power, man. I mean, he's just got a ton of power and deadly.
And people probably just forgot, really, because of the whole Usyk thing where he had that little breakdown. But, I mean, they were talking about this guy like the next GOAT.
But Usyk is like a heavyweight Lomachenko. I mean, he's got an unbelievable amateur background. I mean, he's a beast, dude. It'll be interesting. Him and, Fury are fighting next month in Saudi Arabia. So I think Fury's going to take him, but we'll see. I mean, he's got so much size on Usyk, but we'll see. So, but yeah, man, I'm curious. I'm excited to see if Conor actually goes through this fight, and I'm curious to see what's next for Holloway.
Dude, I am too. Well, boys, this has been fun. It's good talking fights again.
Yeah, it is, right?
Rob, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but this has been awesome.
Yeah, no, dude, I can talk about this stuff all day.
Well, we should do more of it. This has been good.
Every time there's a big boxing fight, we'll have you on and you break it down for us.
Let's do it. I love the content. Love what you guys are doing.
Thanks, man.
Need more of it out there. It's
for sure. To have. Son, I got what we call a connection. We just need some more numbers.
Yeah. We just got to start saying crazy shit like the Guru. And
follow the Ryan Garcia path, dude. Just post Instagram hotties or whatever you got to do, man.
Jared, you guys are doing the pod shirtless. That's the next one.
There we go.
No, that's for my Twitch, my hot tub Twitch stream.
Yeah, your Patreon.
Well, Sal, you have a beautiful rest of your night. Rob, you have a beautiful rest of your night. And like, subscribe, tune in. We will be back for more episodes. And
sure.
You got anything left, Sal?
No, I think you put it perfect.
Awesome.
Nice meeting you, Rob.
You guys. Take care, guys.
Yeah.